we quickly learned how to separate business from family. The wonderful thing that my dad has also taught me was we could fight during the day as far as about business matters and what have you. But at the end of the day, when the day was over, you sit down, you have dinner together, and you enjoy your time together. And we see a lot of family businesses not make it because they don't know how to do that. But we were able to do that, and he did teach me that.
Welcome to the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Leichtweis, author of the book, The Power of Respect in Business. Charlie is one of America's foremost authorities on respect and leadership development. And now, here's Charlie.
My guest today is James Shire. Jamie, as he prefers to be called, is currently co-CEO and Chief Operating Officer of Zyloware Eyewear. Zyloware is the longest, continuously running family-owned and operated eyeglass frame importer and distributor in the United States. Zyloware was founded in 1923 by Jamie's grandfather, Joseph Shire, and Jamie is one of the third generation of Shires at Zyloware today. Prior to working at Zyloware, Jamie spent 2 years at Ballister Optical Laboratories in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. First working in the laboratory and then in various capacities, including as a frame and lens picker, telephone order taker, and working in the lens surfacing and finishing departments. Jamie has been working at Zyloware since 1993. He oversees the entire sales and operations side of the business, in addition to focusing on the corporate strategic direction and the financial performance of Zyloware. He has worked his way up through the company working in a variety of roles, including sales manager, Vice President of Sales, Executive Vice President. He was then promoted to COO, and in 2010 was promoted to co-CEO COO. Throughout Jamie's tenure at Zyloware, he has remained closely involved with the Vision Council. Vision Council is the eyewear industry's top member-driven association. He served it in various capacities, including Chairman of the Board, Chairman of the Vision Council's Eyewear and Accessories Division, and Chairman of the Show Committee, which oversees the biannual Vision Expo shows. In addition, Jamie remains an active board member of Prevent Blindness America. He currently resides in Charlotte, North Carolina, is married to his high school sweetheart, Sarah, and together they're raising their 5 children. He spends his personal time traveling, staying active, and supporting animal rescue organizations. Please welcome Jamie Shire.
Thank you, Charlie. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Given all you've done in this industry, and in particular your experience in a family business from the beginning to the end, it's going to be very important for our audience to get a flavor for the leadership elements you faced, how respect has played a role in that, and how you've evolved over time. So tell me again, from your perspective, how you got started in your career.
Absolutely. So, in my business, nepotism isn't dead. Third generation family business, and I'll say nepotism tongue in cheek, but we had a eyeglass factory in Long Island City, New York, that my grandfather started in 1923. And when I was 4 years old, I remember sitting with my grandfather, and he would show me how to put together eyeglass frames. We would make eyeglass frames in New York. We started outsourcing eyeglasses. My father and my uncle, when they took over, they started outsourcing in the 1960s. And that's definitely a story in itself, coming from an American manufacturer to outsourcing overseas. For me, just growing up into the business, sitting with my grandfather, and that was my first introduction. So at 4 years old, it was never really my thought to really come into the business. Growing up, I would work in the factory because I needed some money. I would work in the shipping department. I'd work in the tumbling rooms where the eyeglass frames were put into these tumblers so they could soften up. They were plastic eyeglass frames, also known as xyl acetate. But I go to school, and I ended up at Roger Williams College, which is now Roger Williams University, and studied business administration. Coming out of school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. It wasn't like my father's day. In my father's day, he had to work. It was an expectation that he would work in the business. My father never put that expectation on me. However, the one expectation he did have was I did not work as Zyloware coming out of college. He felt strongly that I would work elsewhere. That for me to finally, if I was ever to come into the business, I would have to bring something with me. It was not just because I had the Shire family name. That wasn't good enough to come and work into the business. So out of school, I worked for a company called Baluster Optical, like you mentioned. The Baluster family, again, the eyeglass industry is still full of a lot of family businesses. It's obviously become more and more corporate over the years, but families certainly do exist throughout. The Baluster family is a very close family to our family. They took me in out of school. I worked in their lens laboratory, which was unique for me. An eyeglass, just to put in simplistic forms, it's an eyeglass frame, which, it's how the world sees you, and an eyeglass lens, which is how you see the world. I was used to the frame side. It was always about the fashion, what a frame looks like, how does it look on your face, how does it feel, but never really knew about the lens side of the business. So working at Baluster Optical, I got a crash course in optics. I learned about lenses, and I worked, starting from the bottom up as I should have, answering phones and picking frames, picking lenses, working on generators, and understanding that side of the business. And then a few years later, ultimately came into Zyloware.
That's a great story, and it talks about the values that your father had in mind for you to learn prior to actually coming into the business that happened to have your name and leadership roles all throughout it. So as we talk about this, share with the audience, your role in the family, how it's evolved into a leadership role, and perhaps along the way, given your father's stature in your business and in the industry, maybe compare your role with that of your father's role as you worked up through the business.
Yeah. Kind of to set it up, to know my father was to love my father. So the company was started by my grandfather, Joe Shire. And my father and my uncle Bob came into the business in the 50s and really took over. They both had the entrepreneurial spirit, and they worked really well as partners, Bob and Henry. Dad was that quintessential salesman. He would walk in a room and he would make everyone feel like they were the one that he was talking to. He was an entity. He was just an amazing guy, and shoes that I never could fill. And coming into the business, and I believe it's important for anyone that's in a family business, atmosphere, you can't take the place of the one ahead of you. That's not what it's about. It's about kind of walking your own shoes and becoming your own person. And my father was very much about me being my own person. And that's kind of how I really made my own way into the business. So coming into Zyloware, I started as a sales administrator. I just learned, again, from the bottom up, from more of a corporate side, not from the manufacturing side. And started working with some of the salespeople, going to accounts, learning the inner structures of the business, the operations, how everything worked. We had a union factory. So when I came in, we still had the factory. We did shut the factory down in 1994. It just supply and demand economics. But we did retain the union for our distribution. And we still have the union today, who we still work with, have a very good relationship with as well for our distribution center workers. And just learning all of that. But growing up into Zyloware, it was very important that I learned my own way. Even working closely with my father, I realized in a short time that for me to have my own voice, I needed to look outside of the company itself. And that's where you mentioned in your introduction, very gracious introduction, thank you, about the Vision Council. The Vision Council is the leading industry organization that's member driven. It has about 800 members from all sides of the business. And I started volunteering at the Vision Council. I started volunteering time on their show committee, which oversaw the Vision Expo shows. There are 2 Vision Expos per year, one in Las Vegas, one in New York, both at different seasons. And just started making a name for myself, as well as really learning about the other side of the business. And I was able to bring that knowledge back, as I did working with Ballaster Optical as well, bringing that knowledge back to Zyloware. So basically creating my own entity within and bringing value to the company outside of having the Shire name.
Well, that's great. And given that your dad had his reputation in the industry, being your own person had to be both something you wanted to do for yourself, but also a bit of a challenge.
Very much. It was I never would have lasted this long through the business if I didn't. A family business is very hard. And anyone who's listening to this that is part of a family business or has ever worked with a family business realizes that, being in a family is hard at times. I mean, we all sat around the Thanksgiving table fighting with each other. And imagine doing that around a board table. We would joke a lot at the company when people would first start. They would say, okay, so how are things around here? And we would say, okay, well, if you ever hear screaming or if you see things being thrown across the room, it's never at you. We're just doing it to each other. And leadership by fire, if you will, and those are the early days of Zyloware, at least what I saw from my father, my uncle, and of course with my cousin and me. And we would definitely go at it because it wasn't always easy, right? The business is hard. You're frustrated. I'm fighting with my father because there's something else going on, within the family and all that. But we quickly learned how to separate business from family. The wonderful thing that my dad has also taught me was we could fight during the day as far as about business matters and what have you. But at the end of the day, when the day was over, you sit down, you have dinner together and you enjoy your time together. And we see a lot of family businesses not make it because they don't know how to do that. But we were able to do that, and he did teach me that.
I think that's such an important lesson, regardless of whether you're in a family business or not, and that is building the relationships that you need to be able to sustain getting along and doing things together and being successful at it.
Agreed.
That whole relationship side of leadership is sometimes forgotten. People think leadership's how do we drive results?
That's for sure. And, I know we're talking about respect and leadership as well here. And, there's the value of respect within the family dynamic as well. And what I had to do was earn my respect from the family. First coming into the business and you're young, you're out of school, I had a couple of years out of a different job. I still had to earn my way, as did my cousin Chris, as did my father and my uncle when it came to their father. There are great stories about their dealings, and when my father and uncle decided to outsource eyeglasses for the first time because they were having a hard time just manufacturing in the United States back in the early 60s. And they went to France to work with a small factory called Bollé at the time, which we all know for ski goggles now, but it was a small family business at that time that my uncle found. And they made a eyeglass for us called the Invincible, which is a nylon frame. Very much looked like what Buddy Holly wore and that kind of look of the time. And it put Zyloware back on the map from where it was at the time. But my grandfather was livid. You do not go somewhere else and make eyeglasses. We do it. That's what we do. We don't go somewhere else. And the story is that Grandpa walked out. He walked out. He went home. He said, "I'm not dealing with you two kids. You don't know what you're doing," and left. A few months later, when he started seeing the sales reports come in of how things were with this new frame, and saw how great things were with this new eyeglass frame, I guess respect was earned. And he started thinking a little bit differently. Like, okay, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to go back and work with the boys, and the boys maybe know what they're doing. And it took that for him to, for Bob and Henry to earn the respect of their father in the business. Flash forward to Chris and me, we had to earn the same respect from them, and even more importantly, from the industry. I was very fortunate that my father made me work within the industry, but outside the business, because I was able to use that story working for Ballaster Optical when I would go and see accounts. Their first question was, so what are you doing here? I know you're a shire, but what do you, tell me about you. And when I would share with them that I did get my business degree, business administration degree from Roger Williams, and then I worked in the laboratory business, there was definitely a change in them. They first were thinking that some snot-nosed kid was coming in who just wanted to, take over his daddy's business. But when they realized that there was a lot more to it, a lot more substance, I was able to earn their respect, and we were able to do business together. I wasn't just selling them eyeglass frames. We were doing business. And they realized that we were there to help them, and this was a partnership.
Yeah, I think, and that's what some of that experience brings to a person, knowing that that's the case, and building a relationship based on that builds the respect that you received and allowed you and them to be successful as partners.
For sure.
So, we talk about the family a bit so far, and then from the family perspective and leadership perspective, looking down, not down, but across or over at the associates, the day-to-day operations, and that sort of thing. What's been sort of your communication strategy? How did you build the relationship with the folks that work in your company?
It's a good question. Face-to-face, side by side, we do it together. So this is with everyone that works within our company. It was so important that when we have people that decide to come work with us, that they feel part of something bigger than just having a job. And one thing we do talk about at our company is that, this isn't just a job. We're making eyeglasses, and eyeglasses help people see who couldn't normally see. We talk about helping people see a beautiful day every day when they normally may not be able to. So everyone makes a difference within our company. So when it came to bringing people in or cultivating talent, first things first, we got to know each other. They got to know me. I got to know them. I could pretty much name everyone in our company by first name. I know who their families are. They know about me. They know about my family. This is a transparent relationship I have because they are choosing to come work with us. It's a wonderful society we live in. We can work wherever we want to if we can, or we could try to. We have the capacity to, no matter what your background is. And I do believe that anyone that works at Zyloware is choosing to be there. And I appreciate that they're being there, of them being there. So when it comes to the relationship I have, it really is a a partnership in some ways. We talk about the partnership with our suppliers, partnership with our customers, but partnership within the company of of one of mutual respect. What's wonderful is I have an incredible team. I have a team of experts, and that goes everywhere from my vice president of operations to my senior VP of sales, all the way to the person in our distribution center who's cleaning product to put it back on the shelves. And we know them personally, and this type of a business wouldn't work with a hands-off approach. It wouldn't work, with layers, which obviously we do. I have managers, and we have, managers throughout, making sure the work's being done, making sure there's accountability. But at the same time, my door is always open, and it is an open door policy. It's always been an open door policy with myself, with my cousin, as it was with our previous generation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So within all of these elements that have led to the success today, could you share with the audience maybe some cases, whether it's either internal to the company or external facing from the company, of conflict, not in a blaming sense, but conflicts that occurred, and how you overcame them and used the concept of respect to do so?
Yeah. So, the eyeglass business has become more and more corporate over the years. And not a lot of the businesses think the same way we do. I mean, and maybe they can't. They're publicly held companies that it's about dollars and cents. And we have, at times, a lot of our largest customers are corporate. They have a bottom line that they have to look after. And if we're not giving them what they need to make sure their bottom line is substantial and they're not hitting their goals, then they don't need us. And there are times we found that the hard way. We've had cases where we've been dealing with certain customers and larger customers, and we would certainly do our best, but we've in the early days when things got a little bit more corporate, we weren't totally prepared on what the stringent parameters were. So parameters meaning that the quality value standpoint needs to be perfect. And I'm talking about 20 or so years ago where things really changed. And we found ourselves in a position where we weren't prepared with the right product at the right time at the right price. But because of the company we are, because of the people that we surrounded ourselves with internally, we were able to pivot really quickly. And we were able to salvage relationships, with some of these large retailers where ordinarily we wouldn't have been able to. And that's, again, where I'm so proud of our team, because even then to now, we take the expertise out of each one of our employees and employ that expertise. And we have found ourselves from a position where we could have been, close to being out of business, to becoming a top 1, 2, or 3 supplier to the largest retail chains in the world. Mm-hmm. And we did that because what we did, we kept an open mind. We act quickly, we act efficiently, but the lines of communication are constantly open with both our retail partners as well as our suppliers. And now working with suppliers, which are mostly overseas now, we as I said, we don't manufacture anymore. We work with suppliers over in the Far East. But those suppliers are our partners as well, and they were able to work with us as they do now when it comes to certain pricing, and and moving quickly as we had to at that time, and as we still have to do now.
Yeah, I think your message on being able to pivot internally is such an important one, because there's so many things coming at businesses and people today that you just can't always plan for.
Well,
and or you don't really necessarily know in advance.
Well, we found that out in March of 2020, right?
Yes, indeed.
The year 2020, everyone knows 2020 from eyeglasses or eye exams, or we always want 2020 vision. 2020 was supposed to be the year of the eyeglass industry. The eyeglass industry, we were talking about this for years. We can't wait for 2020. That's our year.
Uh-huh.
And then,
Wow.
and then the pandemic hit. Like other businesses, we found ourselves in that same quandary. I believe, I remember March 19th, I was in a car with my kids and my mother and my mom's cat from New York, driving to Charlotte down here where my wife was. And I just decided to close the business for a couple weeks, which is very scary, but we had to make that decision immediately to make sure that our employees were safe and their families were safe, and before we knew what was happening. But it was a time of uncertainty for all of us. But as a family business, and the first concern being the family, the Zyloware family, which is everyone in our stead, with all of our employees, anyone that we touch, we had to make sure they're okay. But going through that time, those next few months, and seeing numbers that were like staggering, like our April and May 2020 numbers, seeing a 93% loss from the year prior, things like that, where you just had to, you just had to laugh, because what else do you do?
Mm-hmm.
But talk about making a pivot. It was an opportunity to actually change your business. And we did that. And I, again, commend the team I have around me, because they weren't afraid. We could have just dug our heads in the sand and wait for this thing to pass over and just restart where we were, but we didn't do that. My cousin and I decided to reinvest in the business, do what we can, reinvest in our website, start a B2C move, which we never did, direct B2C, when it came to eyeglasses and sunglasses and gaming glasses is something that we're into now, for gaming under Shaquille O'Neal, which is one of our licenses. And again, I could share a little bit more about the other licenses. We have incredible partnerships with our licensors. But pivoting during that time and having a team that took this adversity and turned it around to such a positive for our company. Now, looking almost 2 years later, we are an incredibly healthy company. And the success that we've seen over this past year, just from the pivots that we made during the pandemic, it's amazing.
This is, again, such an important message for and story for our listeners. You developed a culture of trust, respect, shared values, communication, and relationships, which is so important, again, based on respect, that allows you to pivot under extreme duress that many companies couldn't. It's not just an argument, well, I don't like that person. We're talking about company being in danger of disappearing from the map, and people understanding how to trust one another because of the respect and the culture you created. That's so important for sustaining a business through uncertain times, and there's always going to be uncertain times, as we witnessed. So, what would you say some of your most important takeaways? Your most important takeaways about respect and leadership you've learned. Whether it's a punch list or not, just comment on that.
So I have learned that respect is not always present with everyone that we do business with. However, if we have our own respect for ourselves for each other within our business and respect for those we're doing business with, then we're fine. We have created a atmosphere of respect throughout Zyloware. Everyone that works with us knows that they're valued. It's palatable. They can feel the value that they're bringing to the table. Like we talked about, they know they're making a difference not only for themselves but for the world when it comes to eyeglasses and eye care and eyewear. And they bring it forward. So if we're able to have that atmosphere of respect within Zyloware, we're able to bring the respect to our customers and even give them an expectation of how you're supposed to do business. So in a world where things are becoming so corporate, everything just about the numbers, business can't sustain itself just that way. There's got to be so much more to it. And the proof lies in, the inner workings of a company and the respect of that company, how people feel about being there. Look at it now. We're in a world now where people could just sit at home. They could actually work and make good money from home by doing Zoom calls or by doing social media or by doing things that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. People have choices. And if we're not, bringing something to the table of value as a business, then, we're just going to go to the wayside as well. So I firmly believe that it's about the respect that we show to people and giving the people an opportunity to want to work with us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. So tell me about a leader who has most influenced you.
Well, look, I know I talked a bit about my father before. He really is the leader that most influenced me because he gave me a chance. He didn't have to. There's other family members, and when it comes to our business, it was 4 of us. It was Bob, Henry, Chris, and myself. Unfortunately, Bob passed away in 2017, and Dad passed away last year. Now it's Chris and me. But it didn't have to work out that way. But Dad taught me. He taught me a lot of things, but he mostly taught me that we could do real well as a business. You could take your business very seriously. Just don't take yourself so seriously.
That's great advice.
It really, life's short, and you got to enjoy it. Enjoy what you're doing. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of this company. But Dad, with his teaching of, and mostly him allowing me to be myself and not him. And he would say all the time, don't be me. Whatever you do, don't be me. Be you. And I guess anyone who's listening to this that is part of a family business, that's thinking about succession, thinking about having your kids come along, or anyone following your footsteps, whether it's family or not, they can't be you. They could be better than you. And Dad did tell me all the time that I was better than him. I think that was Dad being Dad, making me feel good.
Right.
I was just different than him. And Chris and I, my cousin and I, the way we run the business is very different than my father and my uncle did. And they allowed that to happen. So as a leader, my father saw that. Yeah, he wanted his son part of this. Of course he did. But he did it from my vision, not from his vision, which was huge.
That is huge.
Yeah. So he had the respect for me to make me, to allow me to do it the way I needed to do it. And I couldn't have asked for anything better.
That's such a great learning and such a great message. I want to thank Jamie Shire for being with us today, and I especially want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Power of Respect podcast. If you like what you heard today, please consider sharing the podcast and visit our website at expertsandhow.com. And a quick reminder, if you'd like to read my book, The Power of Respect in Business, it's available on Amazon. And especially as we heard today, as you listen to this message, remember, respect builds trust, trust builds relationships, and relationships are the foundation of leadership. Thank you very much.
This has been the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Leichtweis, author of the book, The Power of Respect in Business. To listen to more episodes and to learn about Charlie's leadership development programs, visit his website, expertsinhow.com.